Друзья, привет! Ну что же, как я и обещал, я посетил завод VANs RV15 в Аврора, Орегоне, США и записал интервью с Грегом Хьюзом, вице-президентом компании, а также посетил само производство и заснял, собственно говоря, процесс. К сожалению, что-то пошло не так со звуком, и в интервью, в некоторых частях этого интервью, звук оказался не очень качественным. Я заранее прошу прощения за это. Я знаю, что некоторые из вас скажут, как же так, но вот подвел микрофон. Тем не менее, можно это услышать, прослушать. Значит, в этом видео будет выходить в двух частях. Первая часть будет это интервью с Грегом, и вторая часть это будет посещение самого предприятия и осмотр процесса, собственно говоря, создания деталей для самолетов. Видео с интервью и посещение предприятия пока что я выложу в оригинальном английском языке, но в ближайшее время я сделаю звуковую дорожку перевода, и эти же видео получат звуковую дорожку перевода для тех из вас, кто хотел бы посмотреть это на русском языке. Поэтому приглашаю всех посмотреть мое видео. Еще раз извиняюсь за качество звука в первой части именно самого интервью. И потом можно будет это обсудить и прокомментировать. Ну что, давайте смотреть.
Hello everyone, and today I'm here at VANs Aircraft in Aurora, Oregon. And I was able to find a little bit of a time of Mr. Greg Hughes, who is a vice president of VANs Aircraft. And first of all, I would like to thank you, Greg, for finding a time to meet with me. I know your schedule is very busy.
Not that. I'm glad you're here. It's always good when somebody stops by, and the last couple of years there hasn't been a whole lot of that. So I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. So, well, as you know, I have two YouTube channels.
Yep.
One is pure English channel, and another channel is more focused on the Russian-speaking community.
Right.
It's a former Soviet Union countries.
Right.
And I started both channels when I started to build my RV-10 airplane a couple years ago. And I was surprised how much attention it attracted from the specifically Russian and, of course, English community.
We have well, obviously there's a lot of people building RVs, but it was I joined the company about 4 years ago, and started to learn about the Eastern European and Russian builds that are going on in that whole part of the world, and I mean I was somewhat surprised at how many are being built in that part of the world, so I think it's really cool.
It's true, it's true. Greg, I would like to start with some more or less personal question. I've read about you a little bit, and I know that you, most of your life was in totally different type of business. You was actually doing you was working for a big, large player on the software market, and you was doing cybersecurity, security for that.
Yeah, I worked for a big Fortune 500 company doing cybersecurity and IT security in the financial services space, right?
How you became actually VP in VANs Aircraft? It's a huge career change from something you cannot touch, like software product, saying from the perspective of programmer, to a totally different field of business.
No, it's a whole different world, really. So I had been working in the IT and cyber area for quite a few years, and back in the late 90s, the company that I was working for was acquired, and I was lucky enough to have an opportunity to take some time off before going back to work again. And while I was doing that, I don't know if you could relate, but sometimes you work so much that you're just doing one thing, and then when you stop doing it, you get bored really quick. But mostly I just needed something different. And ever since I was a kid, I'd wanted to learn to fly. And right over the hill that's out, you can see outside the hangar here, actually, there's a little airport called Twin Oaks Air Park. And I was driving by it a few times as I was going back and forth between places, and it's out on a country road, but with a big sign that says "Learn to Fly Here," like they have at every airport. And after driving by it a couple times, I thought to myself, I'd drive by and I'd think to myself, well, that'd be cool, only if. And then I was driving by, and then I realized one day I'm driving by, and I thought, that sign's coming up, and in my head I thought to myself, well, what do you mean only if? I mean, there's I'm not doing much right now. I was doing consulting work, and I could make my own schedule in my own time. So I'm driving up, and I see the sign, and I threw on the brakes, and I hung a right, and walked up to the office. And about half an hour later, I was on a discovery flight, and the next day I was back for my first flight lesson. And it's all kind of downhill from there, to be honest with you. So that was one of the pivotal days in my life, really. It was a major career change. In the process of, so I learned to fly, and I bought a Cherokee, right? Good, solid airplane. And I'd spent a lot of my life working with kids, teenagers, and what have you. And there's a program called Teen Flight that was actually started here at VANs Aircraft. It was a group of teenagers by Scott, who's walking out in front of us here, and he had a group that built an RV-12 as a project, as a teen, sort of an educational, not attached to the school, but educational project. And it was super successful, and that grew into a program with a nonprofit organization here called Airway Science for Kids that has a few different programs that are STEM programs, so science, technology, engineering, math type programs, but focused on aviation topics. And so the high school age program we call Teen Flight, and I got involved in that because they needed somebody they have plenty of people that knew how to build airplanes. They needed somebody that understood kids a little bit better. So they asked me to come in and volunteer and do that. And from there I kind of caught the airplane building bug and picked up an RV-8A project and helped build RV-12s and got to know the VANs community and Van himself. It was through the EA chapter that we're both members of. It was a very organic path, but it kind of led to here. And I didn't get hired as the VP of the company. I actually got hired as the media guy. So it's kind of a marketing media community type of role. It's just changed from there.
But I'm sure that since you're now a vice president of a company, your career path goes up, which means you're really doing a huge amount of work, and I know that because you're a very busy person.
It's I'm definitely not the only busy person. There are a lot of us here that are incredibly busy, I'm privileged that I work with a lot of really talented, really dedicated people who really care about what we do, and that's important in this business, and a lot of us that work here are airplane builders, right? So we're not just running a factory; it's a passion. And but we are really busy. There's no doubt about that.
That's true. Greg, since mid-January, when you and Ryan did a last update, it's already almost a month.
Right.
And I'm sure that all subscribers and all members of the forums are closely monitoring when the next update gonna happen. And I would like to ask, maybe if you have some updates, maybe something has changed since that moment. For example, I may say that just this morning I was reading about forums and found that a couple of people wrote like, wow, we're getting our kids finally. So it looks like it's starting to move. Maybe you would like to make some short update or say maybe some changes which may be interested to...
So I could probably mention a couple of things. There's a lot of things in process right now, but we have, so to set the stage, I think it might be important to explain that everything has changed as far as the things that affect the business that we run, right? And some of those things are internal and some of them are external, and some of them we have direct control over and some of them we have a lot of influence over, and there are a few things that we have no control over, right? So the international container shipping and the costs, and especially the timing or lack of timing information associated with that is huge. As you know, the order rate is up. It changes the way we have to manufacture things and the sizes of our runs and whatnot, and the timing. And this is a company that when I joined was 65 people, right? And now it's 130.
Wow.
And that's in just a few years. And the order rate and the amount of stuff that we have to produce has way more than doubled, right? And so, where the company was sized to be able to deliver reliably on that before, we can still deliver on, but the planning processes need to change. And that's fundamentally kind of where we're at, is working through the changes to the planning process. And it's good. So, and we'll explain it in more detail in the near future, but what we're having to do is we're having to do things in bigger blocks and batches. And think of them like cars on a train, maybe, right? And we're going to load up cars on the train with certain batches of parts that need to be made for specific kits, and those kits will be on train cars, and they'll pull together, and they'll have a starting time and an arrival time, but we have to plan to get all those things together to load into the cars.
And it has to be synchronized.
It has to be synchronized, and one of the brand new things for us that we are working really hard on is that we don't have the capacity in our factory to build all those parts ourselves. So we have some really great companies that we've contracted with, right, that are doing a fine job and have begun delivering parts that are being made at other companies or in the region here and coming to us. And we talked about the laser cutting on the parts where that's appropriate.
I have that question actually.
I'm sure you do, and you may have questions about the testing that we've done around that. And there is a YouTube video coming on the testing. So I'll be interviewing. You'll see I interview and talk with and have a conversation with our engineer who's responsible for doing the testing around that. It's
extremely interesting.
Yeah, he's a lot smarter than I am, but I learned a lot, right? So, but you're right. So, to your point, kits are showing up. They're going to be, when we produce, we will have to produce kits and kit types in batches. Right. So in the past, we were able to make a few of this and a few of that and just kind of keep them coming through. A lot of the production that we were doing was producing for the future. Right. We sell this much and we've been going up at this rate. And so we think for the next 6 months, we'll be going up at about this rate. We can add a little bit more as a sort of a buffer. And then if we don't sell it, we'll sell it eventually. And if we're a little bit short, then we'll up it for the next quarter or the next 6 months. Well, that works fine until the curve goes from here to here, and then
unexpectedly,
and then it really. Sorry about the airplane noise. I love this place. So you kind of reach a point where if the numbers jump the shark, so to speak, and go to a certain level or exceed a threshold, that it truly becomes necessary to change the way you do things, and that's what we've been doing. So no, kids are showing up. And we're working on communications. We really are, from getting it out there. The systems that we have, are sort of for the smaller size, and so we're actively working on putting new things in place. But fundamentally, there's a bit of a bulge in the snake, if you will, right? So, this bulge has happened, and the volume is really, really high right now, which, based on production capacity, has stretched out lead times. And because it's new production capacity that we're only now starting to really get real numbers on in terms of how the timing works out, that it's difficult for us to predict exactly who's going to get what to us when and how long it's going to take. If I'm being honest, that's just the way it works. And so, but we're starting to get that information now, and we're working toward that. Our goal, very clearly, is to get a lot more parts made and get them in here and put them in boxes and get them out the door.
What's better seller for the company, quick build kits or slow build kits?
So it changes over time, and it kind of ebbs and flows. Generally speaking, over the last few years, we've probably sold almost the number of quick build kits that we do slow build kits when it comes to wings and fuselage kits. Mm-hmm. Obviously, those are the only ones that are quick build or slow build. Right now, standard kits are being, like for the month of January, for example, it was a higher percentage or ratio of standard versus quick build. But it changes, and it kind of comes and goes over time.
Greg, the 50th anniversary of a company is coming soon.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course everyone knows that RV15 is hopefully coming, but that's not a question about RV15. I will ask a question about it a little bit later. What else company plans for this anniversary? Is there something special for this anniversary aside of RV15?
No, of course. So the primary celebration for the 50th anniversary of VANs Aircraft will be at Oshkosh this year. And we're working hand in hand with EAA. We're in the planning stages of a number of things, but I know EAA is really excited about it. And so I think it's very likely that Monday at Oshkosh, there'll be a lot of RV stuff going on the first Monday of Oshkosh. And that's probably about all I can say about that right now.
Amazing. Don't forget to visit Oshkosh this year. It's going to be something very interesting.
Come and see us. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll have some stuff. As we get a little further into the year, we'll have some swag and some 50th anniversary stuff that people can get. I probably would have that now if it wasn't for the fact that I'm spending 70 hours a week or so on just working on just the day-to-day operations and making helping get all of these changes in place. But it's going to be great. We have a lot of great people, a lot of people that have worked here for 25 plus years. Obviously, VAN's been around for 50 years doing this, and it's a really exciting time. But I think it'll be fun.
I would like to ask a question. When can we expect the first flight of this airplane? I'm not asking about how many seats, what kind of engine. That's a secret, and it's probably even better to keep it like a surprise. But when can we expect the first flight of this airplane?
So I could tell you what I think, but then I'd have to find a place to hide you until it actually happens. So I can tell you this: behind this wall over here is where they're building the RV15. No, you can't go back there. And that's where the work is going on. It hasn't flown yet. It's coming. And we have a stretch goal, if you will, especially given everything that has been going on in the world that our company's going through. But we have a stretch goal to be able to get to fly the RV15 to Oshkosh this year. So we hope that it'll happen before then. But more important than getting it there is getting it right. And that's what our focus is taking the time that it takes. We've been working on it for quite a while. And we have a dedicated team. It's a design engineering team and a prototype team, completely separate from our factory. Right? Different building, different team, different everything.
To keep it more secret.
Well, and it's true, but it's really a fundamentally different job. VANs is really kind of two different businesses into one. I mean, it's one business, but there's kind of probably actually three main portions of VANs Aircraft. One is the factory and the business operations around the factory, because we make kits and we sell them and we do that. The other one is the team that designs airplanes and runs this demo fleet and maintains it and does the prototype shop, right? And manages the the fleet and all that. And then the third one is what we call our aircraft assembly division, which is taking the RV12 kits and building them into finished airplanes. So we have the factory.
Amazing noise. Beautiful place.
It's a Bush airplane. So we have the factory and the operations, and that is the vast majority of the company. It's by far the largest bulk of the company. We do have other, the other really key and super talented organizations that do things like design new airplanes and whatnot. So that's who's working on that.
RV15 is the very first high-wing airplane for VANs.
Right.
Like VANs have never done anything like that before.
Right.
Does that mean that, and of course we know that at current market there are, to be honest, big gaps for the affordable, good quality, affordable high-wing airplane. Does that mean that VANs is starting a new line of airplanes, like high-wing airplanes, and moving its production from low-wing to high-wing?
Well, so we're not abandoning anything, right? So I wouldn't say that we're moving to. So if the question is, are we moving to exclusively high-wing?
Yes.
The answer is no. Are we building a high-wing airplane? Darn right we are, and it's going to be fun, it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be cool. But this doesn't represent a permanent shift on the part of VANs aircraft to, our low-wing airplanes are great airplanes, right? What we're doing is we're expanding what we do as opposed to switching to something else. It's probably the best way to describe it.
We all know that 100 LL, low lead fuel, slowly gets phased out.
Yeah.
It's in US and Canada.
Right.
In Russia, it's even not that accessible. I mean, in Russia, most people flying, thanks God Lycoming takes more gas. Most of Lycomings takes more gas. But does VANs aircraft have any plans in the? And I know that for most of airplanes, you support Lycoming engines as a firewall forward kits for Lycoming engines.
Right.
Do you have any plans in the future to add a support, let's say, for the different type of engines, let's say electric engines or successful automotive conversion agents?
So our experience with automotive conversions is not positive. And it may be that in the future something changes along those lines, but at least our past experience has been that automotive engines conversions have not been had the reliability that traditional aircraft engines have. Your question about electric for the future, we certainly have our eye on the future from an electric airplane perspective, so that's something that we constantly talk about. And in fact, at lunch today, my boss Ryan Johnson, who's the president and chief engineer at the company, was one of several topics that we talked about today just in our conversational chatter. When battery density and weight, so you get much better energy density and lower weight happens, then I think that it's clearly that is the direction that eventually everything will go. Does that mean batteries are heavy, so if that changes, that's great, but there's also maybe the hybrid approach, right? So there's different approaches to electric airplanes that we could potentially adopt. What I don't think you'll see happen is VANs aircraft designing its own unique electric propulsion systems or its own battery systems. That's a highly specialized area that we don't play in. We don't design our own engines either, right? It's Lycoming engines or a Rotax engine is what we do, and we design
proven engines from other manufacturers.
And it's a system too, right? It's a whole system. You build a system that all fits well together. And so while a Lycoming engine is mechanically fairly simple, there are a lot of moving parts. And so you take an electric motor and it's even simpler, less wear, less maintenance, but now you have electronics that you have to use to control it, and so there's complexity in that. But fundamentally, I think you're really separating the concept of fuel. It becomes fundamentally different, and right now, you tend to, when our engineers are designing an airplane, they tend to build an airplane around a couple of key things. It's like, what are you putting inside, and what is the engine and the size and the placement of the engine, and you start to move those things around, and you have to change everything else on the airplane. You can't just take a different engine that sticks out further and weighs less.
Just put it there.
Just put it on and expect the wings placement to remain the same and for it to work. It's a system of things that have to work together.
Everything has to be in balance.
And I'm not an engineer. I've just had people much smarter than me explain this to me and show it to me and model it on the screen, show me. And I kind of geek out on that stuff, but I'm not the professional when it comes to that. But I do know enough to know that it's not as simple as just taking one engine off and slapping another one on, or taking an engine off and putting an electric motor on it. It's much more complicated than that.
One of the very popular questions which I got from my Russian-speaking community subscribers is about the costs of the delivery of the kits to former Soviet Union. And specifically, like, people often purchase all kits at once. Why? Just because it's less expensive to deliver.
Typically, yes.
But even though it can go up to 20% from the cost of the whole kit just to get it, let's say, to some further east part of the Russia.
Right.
And the question which many subscribers are asking, do you plan for any sort of the hub or storage or agent or dealer in Europe. It doesn't necessarily to be Western or Eastern, it's a
Right.
European continent. So that part where delivery can, let's say, become less expensive.
So the short answer right now is no. We have had a few individuals and companies that have approached us and asked that question. And right now that's not feasible for us. So we wherever it's going in the world, we ship it direct from here. And one of the challenges that we know exists is the desire to minimize cost, because the cost of moving the kits can be so high. And it's probably worth pointing out, as a general rule, because of the large volume of orders and kits that we are producing, packing, and shipping, we have no space to store things here at the factory, almost none. By moving the fleet to this building and some of our storage to this building, we are doing a very limited amount of storage of international crates in order to wait for another crate to come. But we're not able to wait for all of the kits to come together and ship all 4 kits at once anymore. It's just not possible anymore. So we have to ship them separately from each other. We know that for certain countries, if we're able to plan kits to come together to minimize tax impact, import rule impact, and transportation costs, then we do what we can within a certain reason, but we only have so much space. You know, we took 4,000 kit orders last year, 4,000 sub kit orders last year. You know, and if even 10% of the people asked us to store their kits for any period of time more than a few days,
Stock up real quick.
We would have to buy 5 more hangars somewhere here on the airport just to put things in. It adds up very, very quickly. Yeah. And when we stack things up and they get in the way of the things that we need to get to make the next set of parts, you kind of see how that goes.
It's really hard. So you need to ship as many as you can in order to stay. For example, if customer from, by the way, I must say that since I started my channel, I know a couple of successful customers who were able to order and actually get their tail cone kits for RV10 and start to build. So I'm really happy that I was able to spread more word, even more word.
No, that's great. And we're going to have, I will say that, we're sitting here in February, and if I'm ballparking it, and I hate to ballpark time frames because then people will take it as a firm date, but by the May time frame, there are a number of tail kits and other standard build kits in volume that we will be able to ship out the door. And we're working on that right now, building that train, if you will, putting the cars on that train. We have a lot of people here that are signed up to put in a lot of hours and a lot of work to make all of this happen. And so we're excited about the fact that we went through a period of shipping difficulties and supply chain difficulties, and right now we have a lot of parts that are being manufactured. When we go to the tour, you'll be able to see some of the stuff on the floor that's coming in. There's a lot that you can't see because it's all being moved around, but we're excited about shipping a lot of kits out the door. During the COVID times, the average number of kits that we would ship was in the low 30s, and I know that last week we did considerably more than that, and we're targeting to do a lot more than that each week.
Amazing. That's amazing news. I'm sure that everyone was exactly waiting for what you're just saying for those news, because I see that many people are worried about what's happening, how happening, but it looks like things started to move better, and let's hope, cross fingers, it's gonna keep going. So with the recent times, we saw that the prices has risen a little bit.
Yeah.
And one of the questions which I got from few subscribers from Russia, assume they place a 25% deposit or 40-50% deposit on the slow build kit.
Right.
And let's say the kit, and now the lead times can be a year, for example, or 12 months or 10 months.
Right.
And let's say during this period of time, the price has changed.
Right.
Will that be reflected in their final invoice, or their price will be kept as the price which was?
Good question. So, 2 things. Number 1 is we hope to be able to bring those lead times back in closer. It's good for everybody, right? If we take an order today and can't deliver it for a year, that's a lot of time where things could change during that time, and a lot of things in an unpredictable world where things could really change quite a bit. And certainly we want people to be able to get to work and do what they need to do and be excited about it and what have you. So our policy, our current policy, and I mean all policies are subject to change, right? But so this company is built on the belief and the premise that we can make an affordable kit. I mean, now granted, it's an expensive toy, right? But that we can make a relatively affordable kit that the average person may have to work hard to do, but can acquire and can build a really uncommonly cool airplane. That's the purpose of this company, right? I mean, we have the same dreams and aspirations that you do in building airplanes, right? And so our policy right now is if you place an order today, and you make your 25% deposit, then two things happen. Number one, you get your place in line, and number two is you have established the kit that you were ordering at the price. That has been pretty difficult with the rising costs. The more we can move those numbers in, the better off we are. Inflation is continuing to hit us now. I anticipate that we will continue to have to raise kit prices. I would simply assume that we will have to do that because costs are going up all overall. The cost of the people that do the work, the cost of the materials, a lot of items, especially that we buy from third-party suppliers, over the last few weeks have been continuing to go up. And that's the reality of the world that we live in right now. We do everything we can to try to keep that cost down to the customer. That said, it doesn't do any good for us to go broke, because if you're the builder, you need us to be here to be able to deliver the next kit and the support and the parts and all the things that you need in order to be able to be successful. So it's a balancing act for us. But I tend to ramble, but to answer your question a little more directly is, as of right now, until we communicate otherwise, if you order a kit now, then you're ordering it, and that establishes the price at which you're buying the kit and your place in the queue, position in the queue, if you will.
There is another very interesting question from, again, from Russian-speaking community.
All right.
Like as I said before, most of the time, customers SR22. Most of the time, customers from Russia prefer to purchase all kits at once, just to save on customs, shipping, and everything.
Right.
Vans has a rule established saying that you have 30 days for the inspection of your kit to ensure that all parts are in.
For inventory purposes,
For inventory, that's correct. And I have a few separate customers ask the same question. Look, Vlad, we have a small garage where we build it.
Right.
We receive a stock of boxes.
Right.
If we immediately open everything up and inspect, we have to store it somewhere.
Yep.
We are limited. Maybe VANs Aircraft can extend this somehow policy for the inventory when, let's say, all 4 kits purchased at the same time, or maybe it's possible to establish sort of the rule where opening of the box is done under video camera with a date, stamp and everything recording. So it's basically more to allow people to still have a room. When it's packaged professionally by you guys, by your creating team, and it takes less space. As soon as it opened up, it's all over the space.
There are people in the United States and even closer than Eastern Europe or Soviet Union or Russia that are doing, former Soviet Union, forgive me, that are getting multiple boxes or even all of them at the same time. And so the short answer is I really don't think that we can accommodate that, and here's the reason why. Number one is as we make changes to the kit inventory over time, the things that are in the inventory change. And number two is that we really do need to know what parts to provide to replace, or if something gets damaged en route, we need to know that right up front ahead of time. in order to be able to keep a handle and keep track of things from a shipping perspective. It's also important for us to know if something is missed from a process perspective internally. If we don't know about it and something comes up that's a problem that affects more than one person from an inventory perspective, there's real benefit to getting the information as well. But primarily, it's quite a lot of work actually to have to deal with the 30-day window, and to extend that out beyond 30 days. We're not a large company. We're a fairly small company, and if we had a lot more people, then we might be able to dedicate people to helping out with that process, but the kits would also cost a lot more because we'd have to employ a lot more people. So it's part of the trade-off. Generally speaking, it's possible to take the kits apart, use the camera or the phone to shoot video of what it looks like when it's coming out. I know people that have done this, and then very carefully put it back in the same order. It takes extra time, there's no doubt. We have very limited space. I've known a few people that have done that.
And thanks God we don't need to count the rivets, which is basically look at those.
Right, yeah. Don't worry about cutting the rivets.
Maybe another also question to add to the previous one.
Yep.
And for example, if customer in somewhere Far East Russia found some missing part, will Vans deliver that part at your expense, or
Yes.
he has to? Okay, so
Yeah.
Vans takes care of the coverage of the shipping.
Generally speaking, yeah. If it's within the inventory period, and if it was our fault, we will do that. It's not cheap, as you know, but if it's our fault, then and there's no extenuating circumstances, then generally yes, we'll do that.
Earlier today, we started a discussion about laser cut parts, which attracts lots of interest.
Sure.
Can you please elaborate a little bit more? I heard that you acquired expensive equipment for the fatigue testing.
Well, we'll have a YouTube video that we'll be posting with Bernardo, one of our engineers, and myself talking about the fatigue testing that Bernardo has done. We've done some extensive analysis, so actual part making of our parts at the vendors that are doing the laser cutting for us, and a bunch of test rig samples that Bernardo has used in doing the actual analysis of. He didn't just analyze, in fact, the laser cut parts. We also punched the same parts on our punch press. And he did the same testing on all of them. All of the variables involved in terms of how they're processed and produced, deburred or not deburred, types of rivets, quality of rivets, very thorough testing regime. 20, 30 years ago, when you were using high-powered CO2 lasers to cut metal, you were talking about low speeds and a lot of heat. And the options now are more varied. And the other thing is that we have the ability to do testing now that we didn't have before. So we can do real-world, actual, practical validation and analysis of the actual material here. And again, you'll meet Bernardo virtually through the video. But he came here from Boeing, and that's what he did at Boeing. And he came here. Crazy smart guy.
That's very interesting to see that video.
Really good at this stuff, and I think you'll enjoy it. It'll be fun. He does a nice job of explaining things, and so you look forward to that.
That's very interesting. I have another question here about the quality of the fiberglass parts.
Okay.
This question came from some older years customers, 2014, 2015 from Russia. I may think that in those times it was different fiberglass, it was pink color, it was a different quality. So the question sounds like they used to, some customers from Russia, I have a couple of them, bought the kits of RV7, RV9 back in 2014, 2015, and got like the cowlings and some other plastic parts. It was pink color.
Pink color, yeah.
Pink color.
Gone through a few different materials and colors.
And the quality wasn't that great actually. It was some uneven surface with some gaps and everything.
And probably pinholes and what have, and so it required a lot of filling, yeah. So all of our fiberglass, almost all of our fiberglass now is still made in the same place, but it includes a gel coat. So a gray, I'll show that to you when we go on the tour, for example. I'll show you the difference. And you may have seen that on yours as well. So it's an additional layer of finish, if you will, that helps to reduce the amount of labor and work and time that's involved in finishing and prepping the fiberglass cowlings and the wheel bands and what have you, and those wing tips, those sorts of things. It's always a trade-off, right? The more time and expense we have to put into making something, the more the dollars go up to buy it. And some seemingly small things can actually increase the price on those particular items quite a bit. So we have to strike a balance. We also have to strike the balance of how much can we produce, how many of these items can we produce and get in to fulfill for kits. But the gel coat, the gray gel coat, we found has been a really good addition, which is different. If it's pink, it definitely doesn't have gel coat on it, right? It's just a fiberglass right out of the mold.
So when a customer places an order with Vans, I saw many times that the customers opt out for some parts from the order. Let's say they say, okay, I want different brakes, different wheels,
sure,
I want different that. So basically there are two little questions here. First, do you guys monitor that? And
yes.
And the second, do you plan in the future, for example, to add those parts as additional option? I know that you have a beautiful stock parts which flies well and everything is fine.
Sure.
But if, for example, you see that many customers want those Matco wheels, for example, and their valve,
right,
maybe it's a good idea to add it as the additional option. It's going to be expensive, of course, but customer pays what he orders.
Sure.
With the same time, he will get all at once. Do you have such plans?
So the answer is it depends, right? So we have a long list of things that we would like to do. We have a significant number of items in the kit that third-party suppliers have developed alternatives to. So Vans Aircraft, like we said before, we've been around for 50 years. And over those years, there are a significant number of small businesses that have popped up. And many of them, what they make just for RVs, right? And that's their business, and that's their livelihood, frankly, right? So we can't be everything to everyone. So our purpose is to build a really good airplane. We focus on total performance. Land it and take it off slow, fly it fast, nice light handling, a light airplane that performs really, really well. Some people make heavy airplanes. We're probably not going to offer the stuff that makes airplanes really heavy. It just doesn't fit in our individual or company DNA. That doesn't mean that people can't add a lot of stuff to their airplane, right? Now, it's not always about weight. Sometimes people like the way somebody else's cowling looks, or they just like something. Perfectly fine. The beauty of the experimental amateur built airplane, the experimental market, is you get to make it your airplane. So there are some things, we certainly have a list of things for the existing fleet that we say, you know what, we got to prioritize and we'll have to choose, but it'd be nice if we could change that, or if we could add that. We certainly do have, a desire to do options or to enhance existing airplanes. I mean, I think the RV14 is a good example of where that's happened recently. So unfortunately, the airplane's not here right now. Actually, I think it's back in the shop, but the RV14A we have with the IO390 EXP 119 engine on it, with a new special exhaust and a whole new lower cowl, and it puts out a lot of horsepower, and it's got the same fuel servo on it that this airplane has, right? For the 6-cylinder engine, it's the fuel pump is huge, and I flew it to LA and back a couple weeks ago. I can tell you, it's a monster, right? And it's fast, and it's a fun airplane. It's a muscle car. So, and the airplane's a great airplane without that. I mean, and it's still a really great airplane, but you put that in, and it's kind of like going from the from the Mustang to the Mustang GT or something like that, right? I mean, it's taking it up a notch. And those are the kinds of things that we like to do. So we knew the RV14 had a little bit more in it, and we put a little bit more in it. And work with the partner companies to do that. I mean, we're not gonna go and make every design of cowl that everybody might possibly want. There's people doing that, and they're doing it well. We're focusing our energy on the core work that we do, which is designing and building and delivering kits so that you can build a really cool airplane.
Amazing.
And if your definition of really cool means you want to go and get a different shaped wingtip or whatever you want to do, then we're excited to provide the platform for you to do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Probably the last question for today. Considering all those delays, what's happening right now, considering all the situation with high volume orders versus the ability to supply, do you see any way how customers, VAV community, can help you guys? Because we are all on your side, we all really want for our parts, but we want to help. Do you see any way how we can help in this situation? Maybe something what you have in mind to say about how we can help you?
I mean, I think what we have fundamentally is a supply chain material and production massive volume change that happened all at once that we're working through. A lot of what you all can do, and I remember that community too, right? But
of course,
the people in this community are doing and can continue to do is send our team a nice note. Give them the thank you, and I can guarantee you there's nobody here that is conspiring to not ship kits. That's not happening. Everybody here is working ridiculously hard to change everything fundamentally about how we produce and deliver because the massive volume change demands it. And I'm not going to make excuses for us, right? I mean, it's a difficult time, and we're pushing through it, and we're working through it. And the nice thing is that right around the corner here, over the next few months, the volume's going to increase, and that's going to be good. And these things are going to happen in waves, right? So you can expect that. And there's still a lot that we don't have direct control over. So international shipping containers that we need to get right now, and they tell us they're working on it, and we don't get it for 3 months. That's 3 months right there. And 3 months of parts sitting waiting for a container, that puts a massive dent in the schedule and in the workflow. We had that happen just 2 weeks ago. And what we've done is we've said that means we have a few more parts that we can use to do standard build kits because we have to. And the ones that are scheduled because we do these cycles to go in there are going to backfill the quick build kits for the crates that have to go to the assembly facilities. It's the lack of predictability is where the planning is the most difficult. Your question really is about what can people do to help. The fact that people are honestly really quite patient and understanding, and we get some really nice notes and boxes of donuts that magically show up and all kinds of cool stuff, emails and stuff. I get messages, PMs I get, on Facebook. I get texts and phone calls, sometimes in the middle of the night from someone overseas, just kind of saying, hey, hang in there and keep working on it. And thanks for the work we're doing. We're not superheroes, but we know that it's our responsibility to get this stuff done and get the stuff out the door. And that's what people are buying. That's what they deserve, and that's what we're doing.
Amazing, Greg. Thank you very much for your interview. I appreciate you found the time to answer. Thank you.
We need to go look at the factory.
Absolutely. You have a very nice field here, and location of your factory is in amazing place. I see lots of avionics companies are here, world known, and
So, all right, tour time. Here we go.